This application from Double Shoot is absolutely going to change the game when it comes to zeroing your firearm. Now, every now and then there's something that's really cool that comes across the channel, and this is absolutely one of them. This is an app that pretty much makes the zeroing process of any firearm that you have extremely simple and straightforward. One of the targets I'm going to show you later, I was able to zero my gun in one correction based on the app, which is absolutely incredible. So what this app is going to do is pretty much be able to identify where your rounds were on paper and then make a correction based off that. Now, the only way for me to really show you that is going to be on the app, so we're going to do that today, but there are few things that need to be pointed out before we get started. First of all, it's important to mention that this app is not going to make you a better shooter. If you're putting in most blunt terms as possible, if you're not a good shooter and your rounds are usually pretty evasive, then this app is only going to be able to correct based on how well you're able to perform. It's similar to putting any kind of coffee bean in a coffee machine. If you want good quality coffee, the quality of the coffee beans you're putting in is going to determine the quality of the coffee coming out. So you put good in, you get good out. So what this is going to do is that you're going to set up a target, you're going to be able to see where those impacts were, and then it's going to show corrections based off the things that you did. So let's get right into the app. I'll show you how it's set up and how it works, and see if maybe this is something worthwhile for you to get for yourself. Okay, so when you open up the app, you're gonna have this screen in front of you, and what you're going to do is you're able to set up different firearms. So depending on the zero you're going to have, the distance you're going to shoot, you can have those preset references for what you wanna do. So on the bottom, there's going to be a button that says shoot. So when you click shoot, it's going to open up the camera that's going to be for when you're gonna be able to take a picture. Now we're gonna go through the setup based on the way that it looks. So once it loads up, on the bottom left, you'll see it says drill setup. So you'll click drill setup, and then there's going to be a lot of different configurations based on what you're trying to accomplish. So on the top, you'll see it says target type. So when you click that, there are a few different options of different targets you're able to choose from based on preferences. I went with the DS zeroing target, so I'm going to click that. And on the bottom, you're going to see that it says print targets. So you actually print it directly from your printer, and you see I have one of them right over here, that you're just able to print it out directly, and it comes from the app. Once you do that, you'll choose the distance you want to zero. So for me, I was going to go the route of, if I'm just a regular person with no access to any special ranges or things like that, what are things that I'm going to consider? So I want to zero it in that configuration, which I would imagine will be most applicable to the majority of you. So the first thing it was going to be at an indoor range. The second thing was that you have a max distance of 25 yards. So I set it for 25 yards. And then below that, you're able to choose how many rounds you want to zero per section. So I went in 3-round groups as a starting point. Now, on the bottom of that, you'll see it also says firearm in orange. I'm going to click that. And when you click that, you'll see on the bottom right, it says add firearm. So this is going to be where you're able to choose the firearm you're going to use. Now, for this particular one, it says, I label this one Stern. So what it is that you'll see, I'll just go through as an example. I'll just put the name of the gun. I'm going to put in test just so we see what we're looking at. Then for the caliber, you're able to choose whichever caliber you want. I was going to go with 9mm in this particular configuration. And then for the sights, you could choose between a wide variety of options that these sights currently have, so you could choose from it. So I was able to go for this one. I'm going to be using the Holosun Open Reflex sight for pistol. So you'll be able to look at right over here. This was the rifle I was going to be testing out. It's a 9mm carbine, which is kind of like a test for the app, since it might be a little bit odd for there to be more commonly a pistol caliber carbine. Obviously, they are becoming more popular right now and things like that. However, I wanted to see with a longer barrel length, while the app is showing that it's still 9mm, it was able to still zero it correctly. Now, once I do that, I'm going to click create firearm. But again, since I already did that, I'm just going to select it. Now, you're going to see that it comes open to the camera. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to show you the B-roll footage of the actual range. The way it works is that you're going to first take a picture of the target. So you have the blank target that has nothing on it. You're going to take a picture of it, and the app is going to calibrate it based on the photo that you took. After you take that picture, you're going to put the target out at the distance you selected. So in this case, it was 25 yards. At the 25-yard mark, you're going to take your first 3-round shot group. Now, before we continue, it's going to be very important for me to mention, I had a lot of problems going on before being able to zero. So the first issue was the optic that I selected to be able to use this video on was a bad choice on my part. The main reason why is I have an astigmatism, and it happens to be that this optic, when I'm using it, it's somewhat distorted. So for me, when I'm looking at it being in the center of the diamond, which is the target that I selected, I could almost see 2 dots. Now, the problem with that is that you kind of have to figure out which dot is the main dot that I'm using to zero, because then you're not going to be able to get an effective zero. So the dot was covering a little bit larger than the area of what this target was, which immediately makes it very complicated to get an efficient zero because I'm not sure where I'm aiming. So have that in mind as we're going through this, because the issue ended up coming out that it did zero it correctly, but it ended up being a problem. I'm going to show you the other target that I did to follow up, but I'm first going to just use this as the example to show you how the process works before I show you being actually effective with a different rifle that I used. So once you get that at that distance, you set your 3-round group, you bring the target back and you take a second photo. Once you take a second photo, what the app is going to do is going to see where your initial impacts were, and then it's going to show you how to correct it. So there's actually instructions that are going to come up on the screen, and it's going to say for your optic at the distance you're shooting, you're going to do this amount up, this amount right, and it's going to show you even arrows of exactly which part needs to be turned into which direction. So it makes it very, very clear of exactly what you need to do. Now, here as an example, again, just to make sure that we're showing you the actual capabilities of the app, I have right now this target that was with my primary rifle. So I moved the 0 around from that rifle, and this was when I was first testing the app by myself. You can see that I was doing a 4-shot grouping. So there's the 4 shots that are over here. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4. And after that correction, my next set was dead center, and the first shot was actually dead center of the diamond, which means it actually functioned exactly the way it needed to. Again, I'm going to show you the target for this specific firearm just because I want to show you the process, what it was like, but understand that because of the way that I was seeing the reticle, it wasn't as clear to me, which is why I went again to make sure I was able to show with an optic that I knew I was familiar with exactly what it's capable of being able to do. So once I was able to get that down and I went through the first string of fire, I had this target. So the target initially was telling me that I had to go up and I had to go to the left. I made those corrections and I was getting center, but you could see also I had some targets that were off, the rounds that were off to the other side, simply because it was hard for me to identify where the center of my dot was, which ultimately made that be a problem. So after you make that correction, you're able to do another string of fire that either it will be able to correct 0, or it will tell you how to make another correction if you maybe had a flyer. So I had a flyer a few times and you're able to do that. Now, sometimes since it's a app just taking a picture, there might be an issue with it picking up which rounds impacted where, or it could be because of shadows, different things like that. So while you're actually using the app, there's an option that you're able to edit the impacts. So you can actually choose not this area, and show where it actually was. And it has a lot of interesting features. It shows you where your actual impacts were. It shows you the average of, meaning where the center of those rounds ultimately was, as well. It also shows you where your main point of aim was, meaning where you actually want to impact. So it auto calculates all that information to be able to give you the best results, which I think is really cool. Again, it's all calculated by itself and works really well. Now, another thing I'm going to show you on the app, there's a lot of things you're able to do in the settings section that's able to make the app more effective, again, based on your personal use. On the top right of the application, there's going to be an area you could go there where you have your profile information, things like that. And when you click settings, you're able to go through a few different things. There's a language settings, as well as whether you want to go with metric or imperial based on, again, your preference, and then that kind of data. As well as also there's what's really cool is if you want to go back to reference different targets that you were using or different impacts that you had, you could click the history section, and over there is going to show you the actual images you had previously on the app to show you exactly what your previous ones look like. And then when you go back to the center, the main home area, you'll see that it gives you a best grouping information, it gives you a best score, average score, things like that. The reason for that is that you're also able to use this app to compete with other people. Now, that might be a whole separate video I need to make to show you the value of that and kind of having like a competition aspect all on your phone. But I really wanted to be able to show and highlight just the zeroing process and how simple it was within one correction of being able to make impacts, how quickly you were able to actually do it. Now, I have a bunch of papers in front of me. This was, first of all, after I zeroed the 9mm carbine. You could see that my groups were pretty much centered. It wasn't as centered as I wanted to be, again, just because of the optic I was using, but something like this, which was the target that I used for the 223 platform, you could see how literally within one correction, I was hitting dead center, which was really, really cool. So if you're looking to get more information on this, I'm going to leave the app information below so you'll be able to download it directly. You can also check out their website with more information there. And there was a lot of people who did make videos on this app showing how effective it was for them. If you have any questions, other things you'd like to see, please feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. This is Raziel Cohen with ndftraining.com. Thank you for watching.